everybody. Thank you everybody so much for joining us today. My name is Kelsey Bensky. I'm the program manager for Career Services and Industry Relations. And I'm just excited to welcome everybody in person and virtually today to our first ever Undocu-Professional Panel. Hopefully the first of many. This has been a collaborative effort between the Career Center and EOP&S Undocumented Student Services. And so I just want to do a quick shout out and thank you to our planning team, Raj, who's online, Yesenia, Arden, and Vanessa. And I also want to thank all of our panelists for being here. We have 3 panelists here in person and then Barbara joining us virtually. So thank you so much for joining us. I know we've got quite a few folks dialed in on Zoom, so thank you for joining us both in person and via Zoom. And with that, I'm going to kick things over to our facilitators today. Yesenia, you want to kick us off? Thank you.
Hi, I'm Yesenia. I work as a student success and retention specialist for the UPS program, and I do want to mention that we have a undocumented student services center here, and we do provide services like free legal assistance. We have our own counselor, and we do provide financial assistance. We hope you come and visit us. We're located in Building 7, the second floor, room 7210.
Hi everyone, good afternoon. My name is Arden and I'm one of the career advisors here at the Ohlone College Tri-Cities Career Center. Warm welcome to everyone who has joined us in person and online. Just a little bit about our career center as well. We offer free career services to our students and members of the community. We are a federally funded career center. We provide all things related to job search support. And we are located at the Ohlone College Newark campus. So feel free to come by and meet us and join us over there as well. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and kick off our panel today and welcome our panelists. Thank you so much for being here in person and virtually as well. And so our first question for you all, and anyone can start us off, is we'd love to know a little bit more about you and share a little bit more about your educational and career background.
Okay. All right. When it's convenient, right? All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Lisette. I am an undocumented professional, so I don't have DACA. I just want to start off with that because I felt like back when I was in college, I was looking for that. So as a student, I was looking for other individuals like myself pursuing that same goal and the same dream. So I am actually from Sonoma County. Originally from Mexico, came here as a child, and came here by 6 months off the deadline for DACA, so I didn't qualify for DACA. But regardless, Sonoma County is my home. So I grew up in Sonoma County, Petaluma to be more specific, went to Petaluma High, and then as all my friends were graduating high school, we're all graduating high school, I was like, I want to go to college too. So my parents were all scared, we can't afford college, you can't go to college. So I, through all the help from counselors, just research of my own as well, I figured out that I could go to the JC, community college there. So I went to the community college, 2 years later, transferred over to Sonoma State. I graduated with a business degree and a concentration in accounting. And so, yeah, I graduated back in 2020, right when the pandemic started. So it was the worst way to start my professional career, but here we are.
Hi, Hi everyone, good morning, good afternoon. My name is Miguel Pimentel. I was born in Mexico. I came here at the age of 11. Went to middle school here, high school as an undocumented student. Then I went to go ahead and, pursue higher education. I went to Cal State East Bay, where I received my double bachelor's degree in ethnic studies and Spanish. Then 2012, came and I was lucky to be part of the DACA program. I applied, got in, received my work authorization. Then after college, I actually worked at a charter school for about 4 years. And then in 2016, I actually went back to school to get a degree in counseling and being, a DACA recipient, being in grad school. And then eventually, when I received my counseling degree, I worked at Cal State East Bay as an academic counselor, and then Right now, I'm currently working at Las Positas Community College, where I serve as the Dream Center coordinator, providing services for undocumented students.
All right. Hi, y'all. My name is Joel. I came here at the age of 5. I am a non-DACA business owner, but I did have DACA in the past. So when I do like to share that as well, because I feel like some students and individuals in the room sometimes can identify to me when they know that I've seen the side of both worlds, right? Being a DACA recipient at first, and then life happenings that kind of contributed to coming back to not being a non-DACA individual. I got my bachelor's in psychology from UC Santa Cruz, and then I recently finished my master's program in business entrepreneurship and innovation at the University of San Francisco. And so I shifted what I initially thought I was going to be doing, graduating from the four-year university in psychology. And again, because of my status, that shift in what I wanted to do as a career put me in a position where I needed to become a business owner so that I can generate income and put a roof over my head. So I'm very happy to be here.
Hi, everyone. I'll share as well. So I'm Barbara Pinto. I'm one of the managing attorneys at Immigrant Legal Defense. So I guess in my professional capacity, our organization provides free immigration legal services to your campus, as well as 33 other California community colleges and 9 CSU campuses. And so these free immigration legal services vary from just the meeting with an attorney to answer any questions you may have, to also providing free immigration legal services in the form of case representation. So helping individuals in whatever case it may be that they're bringing forward with the immigration agency. And in my personal capacity, I guess I'll share as well, similarly to the panelists, I also immigrated with my parents when I was 2 years old, and grew up undocumented, and attended college also undocumented before there was DACA or Dream Center. So it's so great to now be able to, in a professional capacity, go back and provide services and work together with the Dream Centers. I wish I had that in college. Fortunately, though, I was able to adjust my status and eventually become a citizen right before I attended law school. And so have been now working as an immigration attorney for over 10 years. So almost 11 years now. And I'm happy to be a part of this panel. So thank you all.
Thank you. The second question is going to be for Barbara. So how would you guide undocumented students on finding employment opportunities, and how should students go about obtaining ITIN?
Yeah, so as immigration attorneys, our role is sort of somewhat limited and yet not in terms of helping individuals obtain employment opportunities. When someone meets with us, we try to identify if the person has any way of moving a case with the immigration agency, whether it means that they're eligible for some type of program to get a work permit or to obtain lawful status or to get them on a path to more permanent status like citizenship. So we help identify that. And but unfortunately, there are times where we do have to deliver bad news and be able to and tell someone that unfortunately they may not have currently a path to be able to obtain status. And we offer, when individuals come to us and they're not able to obtain a work permit, we do offer other resources in terms of other organizations that are helping folks with either setting up their own business or connecting them to other peers that have done that so that they know how to best sort of navigate that world and can generate income without work authorization. In terms of getting an ITIN, so since that is something that an individual would need to get directly from the IRS, we refer them to a tax specialist to be able to do that. So our role is mostly representing individuals with the immigration agencies, whether it be in front of USCIS because they're renewing their DACA or they're applying for their green card or their citizenship, or representing them in immigration court to fight against their deportation.
Thank you, Barbara, for your insight. So for our panelists that are here today, I know a few of you are business owners yourselves. If you can please share what are some potential pathways for employment for undocumented folks?
Yeah, so I guess I missed the second part of the question from career background. So I graduated college. Actually, while I was still in school, I started, I was a business major, and I was commingling with a lot of the finance majors, marketing, and the other accounting majors. And so I befriended another accounting major, and we're both like, we need to make some money. How are we gonna make money? So then we're like, we should start doing bookkeeping. We're learning about cost accounting, advanced accounting. We're like, this isn't too hard. We can figure it out. So together with another finance major who already owned a restaurant and like not far from the school, she was like, I'm looking for a bookkeeper. And we're like, oh man, we're bookkeepers, we can do this. So in college, I actually started my own bookkeeping company, Skybound Bookkeeping LLC, with this other accounting major. We both started doing accounting. I figured out that as an undocumented person, you can be a sole proprietor, you can do a partnership, you can do an LLC, you can do an S Corp. No, C Corp, not S Corp. So I was figuring out all these things, so I started doing bookkeeping in college. But because, that was kind of like how Joel said, it wasn't so much of where my passion initially was, but it was what I could do in the moment to find employment. And so I didn't hate it. I was like, I can do this. I'm an accounting major. So COVID happened, 2020, I graduated college, and it was becoming harder and harder to do that networking to get clients. So then I did go into working as a receptionist. I was at the time, I was also doing babysitting, all these little side gigs and side hustles to make it. And I was let go from that. I could network to get more clients, and I was having a really hard time. And so I was like, I'm just gonna start applying to all these places. So I kept on trying. Finally, a small real estate company hired me. And I mean small, I was the only employee. And so answering phones, I tell them I have office experience. I don't have any, but I'm like, I can do this. It can't be too hard. It was just answering emails. But while I was there, the transaction coordinator that was doing all the compliance paperwork for all the realtors quit. And so they're like, you want to do it? It's 1099 work, and you want to give it a try? And I was like, okay. So that's how I got introduced into real estate. Girl quit, I picked up, I was willing to learn. And I kind of deviated away from bookkeeping, focused on real estate, learning all the forms, doing 14 realtors, I was doing all the compliance paperwork there. So I did that for about 3 years, and then a year ago, I got my license. Again, through research, figuring out, in California, we have laws that allow people with ITINs to apply for licenses. So I did quite a bit of research at some point to apply to get my fingerprints done. I was like, oh, this is the right move. Oh my God, am I outing myself? But no, I submitted, I took the classes, took the state exam, I passed. And so about a year ago now, I've quit the receptionist job, went to full-time 1099 transaction coordinator, so I still do compliance paperwork for the realtors, and I do sales. So I do my own transactions, and I'm picking up bookkeeping again because I'm like, why not? I'm still in connection and contact with the other accounting majors from school, which is why it's so great to make friends at school. They'll come in handy later in the future. And so yeah, I'm a bookkeeper, I'm a real estate salesperson, and then I'm a transaction coordinator. And all of those are 1099s, independent contracting work. So for me, my opportunities have been just, independent contracting, offering services, and I will say 100% connecting with people in the community, and my friends from college. And I guess the question, yeah, pathways for employment, just like I said, sole proprietor, partnership, LLCs. When you're starting, when you're small, partnership is a little easier to manage. As you start growing, an LLC definitely gives you more structure to your business.
I am not necessarily like a business owner, but now with the DACA, it's in limbo. I do have a master's in counseling with a credential, with associate professional clinical counselor credential. So if DACA would end, let's say tomorrow, I can always go back and do private practice and, going back to getting an IT number and hopefully, open up my private practice and providing mental health services for individuals that need support.
Lizette was actually talking about a lot of like the business structure, so it might be kind of overwhelming to kind of hear all of those terms without necessarily knowing what those different entities are and the liabilities that come with it. So when you get into business owning as an undocumented individual, it's a whole process in itself, and you can sit here and we can talk about it for about 2 to 3 hours, and we don't have that time. But essentially, depending on what kind of business you want to start or what services you're providing or what consumer goods you're selling, etc., like all of that has to do, all of that will essentially help you in figuring out what kind of business structure you want to start. If it's just individual services, like that's how I started as an independent contractor, or in other terms as a freelancer. You don't necessarily need to present a social security number. You go through a W-9 form, which essentially gives, during tax season, whoever you provided these services to will give you a 1099 for you to do your taxes during tax season. So that's because you're not getting any taxes withheld. You have to pay your self-employment taxes, right? So you can always start as an independent contractor. When I do some of my workshops, etc., I always tell individuals to not form a business structure such as an LLC or a partnership or a C Corp until they know that they want to go like in on that business idea or in on those services they're trying to provide, because LLC fees come with building an LLC structure, right? So if you're not creating any revenue, or if you're not actually in business, you're still going to be required to pay those fees and be required to renew your LLC paperwork so that you stay active, et cetera, right? So it just really depends on what kind of structure you want to go into. Independent contracting is probably the easiest, so sole proprietor is probably the easiest, but it does come with liabilities, right? So if you were to mess up, or if you were to be sued, et cetera, they're going to sue you as the individual, so you want to make sure that you're very cautious of what kind of business structures you go into. I do have an LLC now, and as she mentioned, networking is a large component of where your revenue comes from, so like meeting people. Like for example, right now my business is in contract with Ohlone College to provide career services for job seekers through the YL program that they have that's state funded, right? So then I'm able to provide services for them and have my business entity be paid for. That's a separate entity from myself. So my LLC gets paid, not me, and then the kind of deal with the bookkeeping and all that stuff separately when I have to pay taxes, etc.
Our next question is, as an undocumented person, what were some of the personal struggles you went through and how did you navigate them?
So I guess my personal struggles were at the time just when I was a student, all the way through, like I guess starting at high school, my parents didn't really want me to go to college. They felt right away like they couldn't afford to pay for school, and so my dad actually insisted that I didn't go to college. So that right away created a drift between my family and I, especially my dad, because I was like, no, I want to do this. So personal struggle started all the way, from high school. I wanted to be like my friends. I wanted to have those dreams, those goals of, kind of go up to par with my classmates. And so I felt like there were times that I was falling behind because I wasn't, having those conversations like they were like, oh, what college are you going to go to? Where are you going to go off to? Are you going to live on campus? So early on, those were my struggles. Once I was like, okay, I can go to college through the BOG waiver, which we were just talking about at the time, went to the GC, went on to transfer, and I was living it up. I loved college. And then as I got to my senior year of college, I was like, oh man, I'm about to graduate, but what am I gonna do now? Okay, I made it into college, I'm getting through college, now how am I gonna work after college? So then the anxiety started all over again from thinking like, well, I'm gonna graduate, I'm gonna have a degree that I cannot exercise. Okay, well, what am I gonna do? So I started to look into, independent contracting, but then again, the anxiety and the fear of presenting my W-9 to my, clients, and then wondering if are they gonna ask me why it's an ITIN number, not an SSN. So lots of anxiety out there. And then I started to learn that no, that there's actually a lot of independent contractors that use ITIN, so there doesn't have to be that anxiety. Most people don't even notice the numbers because it's just paperwork to them, but it was definitely a lot of anxiety from high school to this day, sometimes every now and then. I will say that coming to these events keeps me grounded and it helps me stay connected, and but the anxiety is still there every now and then. When people ask about my status, it does make me a little nervous to say. So those are my struggles.
For me, I would say financially, definitely, number one, for undocumented students to pursue higher education, the financial aspect of it is one of the things that it's a barrier. I remember, going to Cal State East Bay as a freshman, that's where my undocumented status actually hit me just because, I couldn't apply for federal financial aid. I knew I couldn't qualify for it. I actually worked as a janitor and dishwasher my freshman year of college, and because I was working like 20, 30 hours a week, I was placed on academic probation by the end of my freshman year in college. I remember, waking up like at 7, 8, taking the bus, shuttle, go to school, go to Cal State East Bay, getting up of classes like around 4, 5 p.m., go home, shower, go to work like at 5:30, and then getting up at midnight, doing a little bit of homework here and there, go to sleep at 2 or 3 a.m. So that was like my whole routine for a year, my freshman year. And again, because I wasn't doing too good in school, I was placed on academic probation. So I remember having this conversation with my parents, and I was like, hey, I'm not actually doing too good in school because, I'm working, and luckily I had the support of both of my parents, and they told me, you know what, Miguel, just quit your job and somehow we're gonna be able to help you pay for your school. And back then, Cal State East Bay was on a quarter system, so every quarter at the beginning, it was around $1,200 per quarter, and then every single year they keep raising tuition every single year. So for undocumented students and me, it was really, really, really hard, keeping up with payments here and there, family have to pay rent, food, necessities and all of that. So I quit my job, and then during my second year of college, that's when I eventually started to get involved more on campus clubs and organizations. I was part of MECHA, Students for Quality Education, And then right before I graduated in 2012, I funded an organization to support undocumented students. And also in my time at ISPE, you know, one of the barriers that I had was one time I was trying to go to the bookstore and trying to rent a book. But back then, you know, it asked me to provide like a California ID, which I didn't have at that time. And I was so, you know, depressed, I was anxious, I was angry to the administration because I was like, you know, my parents and I'm paying for tuition, but yet I cannot even rent a book from the library. So I remember having these conversations with the president of the university at that time, and I was like, look, we need to do something because I'm pretty sure I am not the only one that it's undocumented, so we need to change the systems, we need to change how the bookstore works. You know, we can provide our school ID so that way we can get the books that we need for our classes. And eventually, with those conversations, you know, policies change, and eventually undocumented students were able to rent books from the library just using our school IDs, right? And then, you know, I was able to get scholarships here and there, you know, spending like 3 or 4 hours, you know, working on essays, you know, getting letters of recommendation. But definitely, like I said, you know, financial piece of it was one of the things that made me, you know, being where I am today, right? You know, getting scholarships from the community, you know, locally or nationally. And also when I was pursuing my master's degree, I was able to get support from the university because I was working at Cal State East Bay. So they offered me the employee fee waiver, and, you know, plus fighting the California Dream Act when I was at San Jose State. Also, they gave me like a scholarship. So that aspect of it, when I was pursuing my master's, I actually got support from both my employer and through the California Dream Act.
As an undocumented person, what were some of the personal struggles you went through and how did you navigate them?
I mean, the biggest and personal struggle that I had at both times, mostly at the University of San Francisco, was the imposter syndrome. Not feeling like, you know, like you're deserving of the opportunity. Being the only undocumented student in my master's program was just, was a little tough because you know, like my master's program specifically had an internship component, and it had like a component of like having to go out and practice some of the stuff that you're actually learning in class, and I was unable to do that because I got to a point where I received an internship offer, and when we got down to like the paperwork of it, because it was a paid internship, they essentially, you know, rescinded that offer because I was undocumented, right? So like things like that, I've experienced through college a lot, at the University of Santa Cruz as well. But as Miguel had mentioned, you gotta find those places where you can find individuals that are in your place, right? Because you're not the only undocumented people. And through advocacy and requesting for change or things to be changed so that it's more equitable and inclusive towards undocumented students is how you're going to kind of create a pathway for those students to come, right? So we did a lot of that at UC Santa Cruz. We spoke to, you know, deans of students office. We spoke to financial aid advisors that are undocu allies, et cetera, like requesting for more scholarships, requesting for more funding to come from the university, because the universities are there to serve you. You're a student, and so we did a lot of that advocacy. So that's how I was able to kind of overcome a lot of those struggles. Merit scholarships as well. If you're doing very well, I was very fortunate and blessed to receive a lot of merit-based scholarships because of my academics. Mom was a big supporter and was a big, you know, a big push for education's going to open those doors for you to have a better life than we did. And so I, you know, I've always been very fortunate of having that support. Yeah, just finding those resources, finding those people on campus that are going to be your advocates as well, will help with the anxiety and that imposter syndrome. And so there's a lot of faculty, professors Mentors were a big part of my college career for both my 4-year and my 2-year master's program. I had a lot of mentors through networking, through speaking to professors, et cetera. There's always going to be an individual that's been in your place or is in your place where you can kind of fall back and get a little bit of support.
Barbara, did you want to share a little bit on that question as well?
Can you remind me again what the question was? Sorry.
Yeah, no problem. As an undocumented person, what were some of the personal struggles you went through and how did you navigate them?
Yes, so I think one of the biggest struggles when I was undocumented was that my parents hid for so long the realities of my status and really I guess to say this lightly, lied to me. So it really struggled with you know, I guess the reality of it, or navigating certain things like school, internships, work. And when I did finally end up finding out and they told me the truth, I was applying to colleges and thinking about where to go. And that was really difficult and, you know, somewhat traumatic, and not really, just sort of feeling like, whoa, my whole reality is just so different now. So that was one of my biggest challenges, and trying to navigate that and figure out, okay, what am I going to do now for college? What are my options? How am I going to pay for this? And back then, I feel like you didn't hear so much in the news about undocumented youth, and it wasn't in the media and it wasn't really known. And so every time I approached someone, a school counselor, or somebody to try to figure out college, it sort of seemed like, what do you mean you're like, they couldn't even wrap their head around it or couldn't really understand. And even with like programs that were geared towards first generation students, and this is how you apply for college, or this is how you obtain financial aid, when they just had no idea how to help someone like myself who was not undocumented at that point. So, and we didn't really have anybody in our family that had gone to college either, so that I could rely on. So it was a lot of just like figuring that out as we go, and trying to find help wherever we could. So I would say that was the biggest challenge. And then when it was sort of time for my family and I to see if we could obtain status through a family member, also trying to get legal help was really difficult. We couldn't afford an attorney. We couldn't figure out who could help us. And I just remember feeling so lost in that position. And when we finally did find someone, just really feeling like I wasn't really understanding what was going on, which I think really made it so, which fueled my passion for wanting to go into immigration law and really wanting to help, so someone didn't feel so lost like I did, or didn't feel like there was nobody there to help them, especially provide free services when they could not afford it. But yeah, anyways, I could go on and on, but yes.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. One thing that I took note of from a lot of your answers is that there's a shared theme of, despite those adversities, right, there was positive notes that came from it. So which leads us to our next question is, what are some of the biggest lessons that you all learned from those experiences?
I guess one of the biggest lessons I learned was that a lot of people are going to say no to you. A lot of doors are going to be closed on you. But it sounds so cliche, but if you just keep on trying, one will open. And, you know, I had a pretty similar experience actually to Joel, just that he just mentioned. I thought good grades was everything, and, you know, senior year college, and I'm applying for internships and they're paid, and, just getting that rejection because I didn't have a social security number to back me up for me to get this internship. So, yeah, I felt at times even depressed, thinking, what am I doing? Why am I even going to college? Why am I going through all this stress and hard work and tests if I can't even, use my degree? But at the same time, I kept on going, and I kept on going, and there was some sort of satisfaction, gratification that I was like, okay, well, at least I'll have my degree. So, but I kept on going. I was like, I'm not gonna quit college, I'm not gonna give up. So, yeah, and the doors didn't really fully open right away when I graduated, really. There was a point from being part of the Dream Center actually at Sonoma State that I learned a lot, and that was just sharing with people my story. And, we all grow up, for undocumented kids, your parents tell you to not share your status, and you grow up thinking that that is just how it is. But when I went to Sonoma State and became involved with the Dream Center there, I started to meet other undocumented students and started to be more outspoken about my status and my struggles. And I will say that that is in itself what took me, or has moved me through my career now, because of sharing and being open about things and my struggles. There's a lot of people out there that really do want to help you. I remember sharing, my struggles with I started attending networking events and telling people about my story. And I remember this one time I just random person, I'm telling him, well, I'm an undocumented professional, and I got a job offer that day to do the bookkeeping for a campaign for sheriff in Sonoma County. So just being more outspoken and just sharing, and then building that network and that community with people that are like-minded, that have the same goals and visions and want to help the Latino community and undocumented community. Doors are gonna shut in your face so many times, but if you just keep on trying, keep on going, doors will open eventually, and it's gonna feel amazing.
I'm glad that you mentioned, networking, because networking for me, it's one of the things that I have learned, throughout my 32 years, 31. I remember at Cal State East Bay in 2008, 9, I was the face of undocumented students. One of the professors, invited me to attend a workshop presentation about undocumented students. And I skipped a class that day to actually attend that workshop, and I'm glad that I actually skipped the class, because from that day, actually, a lot of the doors were open. Like Lisa was mentioning, I did share my story in that presentation, and a lot of the faculty and staff, later on, reach out to me saying, hey, thank you for sharing your story. I know that you're struggling financially to pay for your school. However, here are some of the resources, scholarship information that you can apply to be an undocumented student. You don't need a social. So when I received those emails, I'm like, okay, I'm getting the support that I actually needed. And that email, I clicked the links, applied to like 8, 9 different scholarships, won most of them. And that's how I was able to pay for my school, my undergrad, my second year, third, and fourth year. And just, networking, and also, I remember in that specific presentation, there was a faculty member, in the teaching education department, Dr. Lete Ramirez. And since that day, she was my mentor. I followed her, after I graduated, from college. And when I was working at the charter school for 4 years, and then went back to grad school, I needed an internship, a counselor internship, and I knew that, Dr. Lete Ramirez was running a support program that supported second-year students, and there was a counselor, supporting those students. And I remember, emailing her, letting her know that I was in a graduate program in counseling, and, she remembered me, and she said, you know what, why don't you apply to become the counselor, an internship with our counseling department, and I did. I remember, shadowing the counselor, for that program, and then the program ended, the counselor that was running the program, she left, and then that position became vacant, and because I was already in a master's degree program, within a year, and I had done my internship with that program, she offered me the position to become the program counselor, and that's how I was able to gain experience in academic counseling. And then again, it's all about networking, because if you don't network, students, you might not know what's next. You might not know that your next opportunity might be, right around the corner. The person that you're sitting next to might be offering your job, the job that you want. And also, those persons can actually connect you with other folks that can help you, with your situation or with whatever you're actually want to get into.
For me, what I learned from those struggles was the importance of community, the importance of advocacy, the importance of storytelling. Ever since I was in high school or middle school, like I knew my situation, right? Like I was very aware of my situation, and a lot of it, kind of ignited this passion for advocacy, ignited this passion for advocating for spaces, deconstructing narratives around what undocumented people are and what what they do, these narratives of like, we're here to steal jobs, that we're, illegal aliens, that we're criminals, all that stuff. Like a lot of that stuff like enraged me, and it kind of influenced and motivated me to kind of create a different narrative, right? So I think that that's what I learned from my struggles, was being able to bring people together and advocate for more resources, and advocate for awareness of the issues that we're experiencing within the classrooms, within our campuses. So even through high school, like I've created a club on campus to kind of shine light on these issues of high school students, and all of that kind of transferred over to my college careers as well. Like a lot of advocacy, a lot of Undocu events on campus, a lot of protesting, a lot of when Trump came into power, et cetera. Like a lot of this stuff, I was out on the streets. I was out requesting community members to support our causes, et cetera. So those struggles that I experienced kind of influenced that and taught me how to be an advocate and be vocal about our needs as students and professionals.
Barbara,
Oh yeah. I have similar answer as well, is that just to connect with people, because you never know, even if you think someone may not be able to help you, or you're just like, why should I ask this person? Just connecting with someone or asking someone, you never know who will be like your biggest cheerleader or your future mentor, or who will have answers for you. And even if you connect with somebody, get an answer, just keep asking others and see what you get. That has been, I think, the most valuable, and not giving up either. I had a recent consultation or an appointment with an undergraduate who, at the end of talking about her immigration case, she's actually, separate from that, I wanted to ask you, I'm interested in going to law school. Do you have any openings for an internship at your organization? And, what resources or what should I be looking into now? And I was pleasantly surprised because we do so many of these, and but not everyone sort of asked, separate from the immigration question, sort of like a more personal question. And so I was able to connect her to some programs that are for undergraduate students to start preparing them for law school. And she was like, wow, how come I haven't heard of these? This is so great. And we've connected on other things since then as well. So yeah, so, just ask, even if you think it might be embarrassing or is this going to be awkward, just try it. And this is also coming from somebody that's not an extrovert. So I get it. It can be really hard when you're just like, I'm just putting myself on the spot, but you never know who then will reach out and really can be so helpful in whatever way.
Thank you for sharing your guys' experiences, struggles, and resources that were helpful for you. We will now be transitioning to the Q&A section.
So we're gonna go ahead and take questions both in person and online. Just to let everyone know, this is being recorded, so if there is a question that you do not feel comfortable asking in the large group, feel free to stay after and you can come up to our panelists, or you can submit an anonymous question as well in our webinar. But yeah, do we have any questions?
I was going to ask, the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce in the state of California seems to be very active at the statewide level, and so I was wondering if you're involved at the local level or if you have been able to use that to help you with your business and growth.
So I am part of the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce in my town. Within the Hispanic Chamber, there's an umbrella of other, so I'm part of the Sonoma Young Professionals, but the parent, I guess, is the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. And I actually put together mixers 3 to 4 times a year. And I love it, just connecting with more individuals. We have a pretty solid group there. Back in December, check this out, a senator showed up, Senator Ben Whistle, which there's a lot of senators in California, so I don't know all senators, but I'm like 2 glasses of wine in, because we do wine and cheese and crackers, and everyone's walking around, and the senator comes up to me and then 3 other gals, and he's like, oh, and asking questions like, what do you do? What do you do in background? And a little bit of just chit-chatting, and I tell him that I'm undocumented, and he's like, oh, you have DACA, and I was like, no. And he's like, you don't have anything, and I was like, no. We're joking around a little bit, but I took this very seriously. He's like, if you ever need any help, here's my card. He's like, you are part of the group that we want to keep in this country, that are bettering this country and offering employment and working. And so I will say that Hispanic Chamber of Commerce is a great resource. And within the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, there's a lot more groups sometimes and programs that they put together, mixers, events. They will actually do shout outs in their social media, they'll promote your business, and they'll connect with other individuals sometimes. And there's a lot of just sharing information, and so I use it heavily and I'm part of it and I love it. Yeah.
I have a couple questions online. So the first, I think, is probably best answered by Barbara, which is there any news whether DACA will reopen for new applicants?
So right now we're not sure yet. We're waiting for, again, another decision from the district court in Texas on the litigation around DACA. So we know that April 26th is the deadline. The judge has given both parties to submit the briefs and their arguments in the case. And then after that, we'll probably receive a decision, but not sure yet exactly what the timeline is. And then depending on what the decision is, it might get also, again, appealed to the Fifth Circuit and maybe even again to the US Supreme Court. So unfortunately, even after we receive a decision this year, it may not be the end of this DACA limbo.
The next question is for our independent contractors, business owners. what are some strategies you've used to introduce yourself as an independent contractor to an employer without showing your work status?
You want to be ready. Like, you want to be educated on what independent contracting is, the limitations of independent contracting because of California AB 5 laws, which have been changed a little bit over the last couple of years, I believe, in terms of like who can, what can be labeled as an independent contractor versus an employee. So you want to make sure that you keep the two separate and you're not, and you're abiding by all California labor laws. But yeah, just be ready. Like present yourself accordingly in terms of like what your expertise is, because that's essentially what's going to be asked of you, right? If you're going to provide independent contract services, what are you servicing? Like, what are you providing that they don't already have? If it's something that's that you're claiming you're an expert in, right? Whether it be bookkeeping, whether it be career services, whether it be whatever it is, right? So be confident in your expertise, be confident in what you're knowledgeable in, and also just have your mentors look over it as well. If you have someone that's already doing a self-employment, like ask them how do you can approach or how you can pitch your business or your services in 30 seconds, because that's usually how it happens. As Lisette was saying, networking events, if you're talking to someone, you want to have that 30-second pitch ready, like, hey, this is what I'm doing, this is what I offer, this is why you should hire me, or here's my business card. If you know anyone that needs these services, like let me know. Or through your network, maybe you're already talking to someone and you're like, hey, I'm thinking of going into this independent independent contracting journey. Like, this is what I do. I build websites. I'm a graphic designer. I'm a photographer. Like, this is my work. Here's my Instagram. Here's my website. Stuff like that. Having that stuff ready will give you more credibility, so that people want to contract with you and become a client of yours.
I definitely want to second all of that. So just be ready to answer questions. What services you offer, your rates. I will say, do your research. If you're offering a service, check with other businesses in the area. You don't want to get underpaid or overcharge. So check with other businesses in the area. Be ready to speak about what you're offering. And I will say also, I use this website, Immigrants Rising. I use that a lot to kind of learn the definitions of being an independent contractor and an employee, because sometimes, and you'll run into it, where business owners, especially, not that they will try to take advantage, but maybe they don't understand the line between independent contracting and an employee, and those lines can easily get blurred. So you don't want to be breaking any laws or anything. You want to stick to what you offer, and to educate yourself on the differences between an employee and an independent contractor. Have your elevator speech ready, have your rates ready, and stick your ground to it, to what you offer and your rates and what you deserve based on the work that you provide.
Thank you. Do we have any other last minute questions from the audience? All right, if not, we have one very last question for all of you. For the sake of time, maybe we can keep it very brief. But the last question is, do you have any words of advice for our students or community members here today that may be experiencing an undocumented struggle or documented struggle? What would you like to share with them?
Go to your dream center, 100%, go to it. Stay connected, talk to them, ask them whatever questions. Most likely you're not the only person going through that struggle, fear, anxiety. You are not the only one. We're all going through the same struggles, so reach out to them.
I would say si se puede. If we all did it, you can do it too. Use your resources, like Lisa said. Use your dream resource centers, liaisons, attend workshop events, activities in your area, conferences in your area, meet other people, meet other peers, meet other undocumented, documented, undocu-professionals, and we are here to help you. And
Yeah, same as them. Use your dream centers, use your resources that you have. A lot of us did not have the opportunity to have those resources provided to us, so take advantage of them. They're there for you. They are there because students and advocates before you advocated for these spaces so that we can have a more equitable playing field. And if you are documented, put your non-DACA people on. If you have an opportunity, contract with them. I like to say if you're going to talk the talk, do the walk as well. So, as a business owner myself now, a lot of the opportunities I put out there are inclusive for non-DACA independent contractors that want to kind of get their feet wet. So, if you want to be an advocate, you also want to make sure that you put our people on. Community unidad is important, so you want to make sure that you come in community and support each other because we're not the only ones here.
One thing I'll add is take advantage of the free legal services that we have to offer. It's really just amazing that this exists at all the community colleges, at all the CSUs, even the UCs. So really take advantage and sign up yourselves or your family members because it's a great resource. Even if you already have talked to someone in the past, it never hurts to check in again and use it as if like you were how you go regularly to see a doctor or a dentist or whatever it may be. See it as that, as checking in just to see if anything has changed, if there's anything you can do, or maybe your parents that could help. And then also for a limited time, I'm using this moment, we also have financial assistance where we're paying for the DACA renewal filing fee, the $495. It really is being underutilized. So please reach out to us so that we can not only help you file your renewal for free, but pay for the $495. So no one should be paying for their renewal since we have this, this grant.
Before we finish off the panel, I just want to speak about the Find Your Ally. So as a Lonely student, staff, or any community member, you can go to findmyally.com, search up Ohlone College, and you can receive free legal assistance. For right now, it's just through Zoom, but I would recommend to check it out.
All right, well, with that said, we'd like to thank everyone again for being here today. Thank you, panelists, for sharing your experiences and your stories. Super insightful, and hope everyone had a really great time today. We do have some resources for you here if you'd like to take some before you leave. Thank you to those that joined virtually. The recording will be sent out to all of the registrants that attended this event and registered for this event. And we also have some refreshments here if you're here in person. So please join us. Right, thank you.